And we are live again. Hi everyone, hi, I'm Anton of Pixel Hybrid, and I'm saying we, not because I have some weird complex where I have like 1,000 personalities inside of me. No, it's because, well, I'm not crazy. No, it's because right here with me I have Anton from Pixel Night. Hello.
Hi, sir.
Hi, and we're going to talk about a game that I've been playing a lot, and you've seen it on the channel. It's called Empathy: Path of Whispers, which is, you know, I've enjoyed, and it's out now. It was released today, this week. It was released on the 16th, and you can find it to the link in the description below. First, before we talk about the game, let's talk about the developer of the game, because it's a developer interview. So, game is cool, but also developers are cool, because they're people. Developers are people to everyone. So let's talk about Pixel Night, the developer of Empathy. So Anton, you know, just tell me about the studio and about yourself.
Yeah, right, yeah. So we're a small studio. Originally, Empathy was a student project. Started in 2012, and then later we formed the studio for, you know, all the legal mumbo jumbo that you have to go through when you release on Steam. So the funny thing is that we actually registered our studio in Canada because of our partnership with another company called Iron Studios, who take care of many of the visuals you see in the game. So it was, you know, for the ease of the cooperation, because they are Canadian as well. But still, most of our team are in Stockholm, Sweden. Some are in Uppsala, city nearby here. So we count ourselves as a Swedish studio, despite the registration in Canada. And we are 7 people right now on our team. Some are part-time, some are working on the game full-time, especially now before the release. Plus, you know, a few freelancers, and then there is Iron, of course.
Okay, so you're based in Sweden, right? Somewhat international, let's say.
Right.
Well, that's good. So, and you've worked on this game for a long time now, right? I mean,
yeah, actually, for almost too long.
Did you work from it? Did you work on it like full time? Let's say since
not really.
I
mean, the game's history was that it started, as mentioned, as a student project in 2012. Then we kind of fiddled around with our thoughts and ideas, what we could do, what we wanted to do. And it undergone lots of changes. First, it started as a point-and-click, actually, in UDK, a prequel of our current engine, Unreal 4. And then in 2014, I think, we switched to first-person instead of point-and-click, because we felt it allowed for more freedom and to better realize our ideas for the stories that we wanted to tell. And we also took the opportunity to switch to a new engine, which is Unreal 4 instead of UDK. Then later we signed a publishing agreement with Iceberg Entertainment in 2015 and started working on the game more seriously, more full-time. We basically entered production and been in it for about 3 years, I think. So yeah, okay, quite a long time.
Quite a long time, but it's good to see it come to fruition, right?
Yep, sure does.
So tell me a quick, let's say, Steam page description of Empathy. What is it?
Basically what Empathy is about, well, Empathy is an atmospheric and story-driven adventure game. It's in the same genre as, say, you know, Firewatch, The Vanishing of Ethan Carter. Basically, story-heavy games with their unique twists on how they want to tell their stories, including us. And we are aiming for the kind of audience that enjoy complicated stories with, you know, different nuances to them, and just want to take it at their own pace, explore the world, find all the small nooks and crannies and all additional info about it, as well as enjoy our mechanics that we use to tell the story. So yeah, it's a story-driven adventure game, to summarize it short, about a world that's been thrown off its emotional balance, and it's up to you to find those emotions and memories and restore them.
And as you restore them, you find more about the world. And you get
I mean, our mechanic of storytelling is that you have all those small stories about people scattered in the world, because Empathy primarily focuses on other people. It's not about the protagonist, it's about various conflicts in the world. Some of those conflicts are political, some of those are religious, some of those are just power struggle. And you, as a player, are supposed to find small mementos, tidbits of story, and as you find them, you kind of synchronize yourself to a specific memory of a key person that the current story is about. And once you find all those fragments, you get to relive the memory and complete it to, experience firsthand what happened to the people the story is about.
So why you said that you're focusing on other people, not the protagonists? Why was that a choice made from the beginning, and why did you decide upon that?
We felt it was a more interesting way of storytelling because protagonist here is tied in with lots of aspects of the story. You will find a lot of answers about who the protagonist is, why you are on this journey, what's behind it. But it's not about the protagonist. We wanted to highlight all the different aspects of various conflicts that you can stumble upon, whether it's a religious conflict, whether it's a political conflict, or just ordinary everyday conflict about simple power struggle in a specific place. And often we felt that those conflicts were overlooked in favor of focusing on some kind of epic hero's journey rather than focusing on the people along the way of that journey. And in Empathy, we chose to highlight the struggles of those people and their own ambitions and their own motivations. Because there isn't really right or wrong answers to most of those stories. It's just, as you would say, shades of gray, with some of people being good, some of them being bad, some of them being just, people. And we wanted to just highlight all those everyday stories.
Okay, so it's more about the reality of being human, choices,
Well,
good people.
Yeah, maybe that's a little bit way too grand. I would say, the reality of being human, but yeah, that's one way of putting it, absolutely. And it's just about story about humans and how they behave. We one particular focus of ours in the story was to highlight the same issue from multiple perspectives. So you often get told story from one perspective, but we wanted to show how different people approach the same issue and how the same problem was viewed by different participants. There often, there isn't a single side to the story. Some think of it one way, some think of a conflict another way, and we wanted to highlight those differences to make the player think how, just reflect on it and take it with them, to consider an issue from different angles.
So you want to see if the player could agree or disagree with one view, but all views are represented, or multiple views are represented for the
Yes,
same
we wanted
problem.
to highlight multiple views to a single issue because I think it's fun to just explore various aspects of the story, and that's something that our writer was very strict about. That he didn't want to write a fairy tale or a story about good and evil. He wanted to write a story about nature of humans and how they act and how they think. It's a more everyday story rather than some grand epic, although there is of course those mysteries deep in the stories, but what we highlight is the human nature.
You're interesting. There's no grand, but looking at the world, especially at the beginning, it feels very different than what you see outside in real life. So, what's the construction of the world about? Because it feels very different. That's so.
Yeah,
It doesn't
absolutely.
feel,
I mean,
it's not. Yeah, tell me.
we went for that on purpose. I'm the level designer of the game as well, and when I first started thinking about how we want to construct the world, I had very strict rules that everything you see feels kind of surreal, kind of weird, but it's not completely impossible. So if you look, for example, at the statue of the Atlas holding up a park, it's absolutely not something you would see in real life, but it's grounded in the reality. Nothing is floating, nothing is impossible to build. It just wouldn't be the first way of building it. Those weird skyscrapers, those long railroads in the sky. Neither of that is impossible, but it's there to just highlight the surreal nature of the world, and just to give the player more food for thoughts, as well as highlighting those isolated areas of different conflicts. It's a bit of symbolism to it, and originally the game started a lot more linear, so the railroad was originally the main tracks that the player would walk on through probably dozens and dozens of small areas. Later, that developed to being more about story hubs like Atlas Park, and next to the train station, then we have the lush mountains, but we still have the leftovers from that original linear design to the world, although we went for more free roaming in the end. But what I wanted also to have with the world is kind of like stimulate the player's imagination, because for me, games are about giving you food for thoughts, and I don't want a player to feel like they've how to put it. I don't want them to feel at home, like they recognize themselves. There are aspects and certain elements of the game where you feel more comfortable with, like park. Okay, okay, it's the trees. That's the usual. But then you have those weird blockades. You have the writing on the wall. So there's always aspect of something different to every part of the levels that kind of jerks you out of this comfort zone of recognizing the levels from any previous iterations you might have seen in other games.
Yeah, and it's well, I think it's evident, everywhere. You see recognizable elements, but in an unrecognizable world. The setting is, like you said, surreal, but the elements in it, they could be taken from anywhere, and you would believe them to exist.
I mean,
I really like that.
That's kind of like the point of the game, that they have those small elements you feel at home with, such as like the small camps there in the park, but its location is unnatural because it's on a football plane. And then you have the sewers, you have trees, you have a lake, and then there is, of course, all the small elements just jerking you back to the surrealism of it. And that's kind of the point, because we have those small, like an tranquility zone within those surreal places, such as a camp or, say, interior of the train station, which players recognize and will find themselves familiar with. But as soon as they go outside, they find, okay, well, this isn't quite right, being reminded about it.
And playing through Empathy, it was this surrealness of the world. I don't know why, but I draw that parallel with specific types of societies, especially communist societies. I'm not. This is because those are, let's say, proxies in reality of something that looks normal but is not right beneath. And that's how, at least on my end, that's how I feel. Going through Empathy, it looks like it could be normal, but there's something eerie that makes it not feel exactly right.
Sorry, what kind of societies did you mention there at the beginning? I can lose the word.
Communist
right.
societies.
Well,
oppressive societies, totalitarian ones.
We drew some of the inspiration for the world from the Eastern Bloc architecture and Soviet countries, because I'm Russian myself as well, and I find this kind of architecture really interesting, because you can kind of get the Eastern European vibes from some of the design choices we made in the game, such as, say, there is trash cans along the path here in the park that have this typical Soviet design being made from a block of cement. And then, just general architecture and general vibe to the city is absolutely something that was supposed to feel a little bit more Eastern European. But then we kind of switch it up a little bit in the next environment of the game, the lush and ancient mountains, which are a little bit different. They are a little bit more European, although still the settings are in some Eastern European country, basically. That's evident from the names of the character, from some parts of the story, from some items, from some level design. That's all on purpose. And as you said, absolutely, it's kind of like normal. Some parts of the normal, obviously, it's not normal on the surface. When you see this giant Atlas statue holding the park, you know that, okay, something is weird there. But we try hard to mix those elements of surrealism and the more recognizable elements for the player.
And would you say that you wanted this world that you get to visit in Empathy, because you're not visiting all of it, this part of the world, did you want it to, let's say, be pinpointed somewhere, or could it be pretty much anywhere? In the real world, I mean.
In the real world, again, it's somewhere unspecified Eastern European place, basically. I mean, obviously, the architecture doesn't really feel, say, American or, say, Asian. So we kind of went for that generic Eastern European style, because that's also where I grew up, and that's something I have lots of experience with. So that's something that I allowed to influence a lot of choices in the level design and the 3D.
Yeah, another thing that you see when you go around in Empathy, of course, it's gritty, it's dark. Can you, like, just without spoiling anything, tell us kind of how it got to this specific state? I mean, are the people dead? Kinda. Was there like a big apocalypse? Because I know in the in your on the Steam page it says that you have to halt an impending apocalypse, and I look around, it's like I think the apocalypse already got here. It looks pretty dead.
Yeah, it's hard to explain without spoiling, but basically what you're exploring is a world on the edge of having its society collapsing. And you're just there in that last moment frozen in time to try and stop it from happening. So what you're exploring is the aftermath of a certain event that affected the world, and it will bring it to kind of like its end unless you as a player stop it.
So so you're between two storms. Something really bad happened to get the whole world in this state, and now it's the calm before the final, let's say.
Yeah, the calm before the final thunder. Yeah, you could say it that way, absolutely.
Yeah, because it really feels like this world has suffered a lot, and when you go into it and you discover things, it seems like no, there could be something even worse than this happening. So
it's incoming. The player just arrives, into the eye of the storm, so to say. It's calm in the middle, but it's stormy on the side. So it's up to you to stop it.
So let's talk a little bit about the gameplay. So you walk around a lot. You go through specific areas, and they're not big. They're not big locations. At least, I don't think they're big locations. Did you really? Was this like your intention to focus on tightly knit places with tightly knit communities, forced or not communities, of course, like the camp?
Sorry. Can you repeat the question?
Yeah. So you go through very specific areas that are not very large in Empathy, and was that something that you wanted to do, to focus on small but significant stories, not something that's on a grander scale?
Yeah.
Because you don't get to visit a lot in Empathy. Just a park, a few things. It's very small areas of the whole world.
Well, there is both yes and no. I mean, our original intention was to create this more of a free roaming experience, in contrast to some other more linear story-driven games. But I think that the levels became a little bit larger than we would have it, because even the park, it has lots of space that isn't tied to a story. It's just there to be part of the level design, because it feels natural, that the park is a little bit larger. It has lots of open space for different activities, for exploration, everything. But at the same time, the areas did become slightly larger than I would have preferred it myself now in the hindsight. But at the same time, yes, that was absolutely the intention as well for the free roaming experience that Empathy is.
Do you think that the levels becoming bigger, let's say, makes the player want to, well, not specifically want to, but lose himself or herself a little bit more, without finding
A little bit. I mean,
circles maybe?
it's all about the mechanics using your game, and in our game it was a challenge how to direct the player along the main story while still allowing them some freedom of exploration outside of the story, which is what we sold with certain gadgets that the player will find in the very first minute of the game as scanners that kind of points you to the location of the most critical objects. It's a special gadget that kind of like senses them and allows you to find them in the world because of how large the levels are. But the players are never tied to those particular objects. They are free to, break off the path and go off exploring, which we reward with both visual storytelling, additional information about the story of the game, some small Easter eggs, etc., etc. So, of course, your level design is kind of tied to to the mechanics you use to allow the player to explore the level. As I mentioned before, we were originally intended for a more linear experience, and then it would have been just very streamlined. You go from story to story, but in the end, we felt like no, we want to allow the player to free roam a little bit more, which raises up the question of how we direct the player, and that's where the scanner came in.
So the scanner, did it appear as an element because of this need to direct the player, or was it there before?
The scanner was there before to allow you. It's a little bit of both, because we wanted to have a mechanics that allowed to interact with the world rather than just going around listening to voiceovers, and also there was a necessity to direct the player. And the scanner ties in naturally into the stories that the player will discover later on, but it's also a tool for the direction of the player and kind of like a helping device to help the player orient themselves in every level of the game, except for some locations where the scanner is no longer needed.
Yeah, because sometimes it's not always. You don't want to direct the player, in specific scenarios. I realize that it's a device that you just pretty much you had and you were able to, let's say manipulate, so it does two things for you, two very important things in terms of gameplay at least.
Absolutely, and the interesting thing about the device is that there is some very mixed feedback about it. Some players understand it really, really easily how it works, and its mechanism, its logic is very simple. I mean, if you understand it, it takes like maybe 5-10 seconds to interact with an object. But we also notice that for some players it feels very unorthodox and very, alien to what they usually used to. So if you don't quite understand it, it can be much more challenging mechanic, which some players spend half a minute on at times, or even a minute just on a single interaction, which is something we have tweaked a little bit, because we still want to keep ourselves within a specific flow of the games, that we don't want it to be too time consuming, but at the same time we want it to be a little bit of a challenge of an interaction. So it's all about the balance, I would say.
Yeah, so let's talking about it a little bit. You can see like it on the screen right now. Basically what you have to do is line up the devices, let's say wavelength, to the wavelength of this memory, and you have three basic settings. The kind of say, let's say the rate, the frequency.
Well,
then,
it's it's the frequency, the amplitude, and the width, basically what those letters stand for.
Yeah, so I think it's in a three-dimensional world, let's say. It's a pretty straightforward device, right? It's matching something. And how do you match that? Well, it shouldn't take that much, because you have, I don't know, I think since the original build that I played, since then you've made it a lot easier to use. So I think
absolutely.
which is something that you maybe need a minute. Maybe you need a minute to get used to.
Yeah.
But, I like it that it can't be too complicated either, right?
The funny thing is that we got so used to this device over the years that it'd been part of the games that it feels just natural to us. It takes me maybe 5-10 seconds to complete it, but then we noticed that wow, some streamers took 2 minutes to figure it out, and that was not the intention. So we had to adjust the difficulty of the device and adjust its experience, because there is a certain certain gameplay experience. And we want to keep to it, and we will keep adjusting to find that sweet spot for the device. I still have some ideas that I would like to try with it, and we'll see when we get those in.
Yeah, but for the most part, you don't want the use of this device to be cumbersome, right? Because it's not
exactly
the main element. The main element would be discovering the memories,
exactly.
finding out what
we just saw a very interesting effect of the device, because as soon as the players have any sort of direction or minimap like this devices, they will follow it. And that impacts the flow of the game, because, as I mentioned before, we wanted to aim for a more free-roaming exploration experience, instead of player going from point of the story to point of the story to point of the story, as we noticed some of the players choose to do with the device. Of course, it's up to them how they play the game, but we still want to explore further how exactly we can allow for a more explorative gameplay instead of them using this device all the time.
Well, I think it's also about choice, right? Because you
Absolutely.
don't have to go, you don't have to hone yourself, because there's so much to see here, and there are objects in this world that have memories, that have content, right? Story content that you can't find using the device. So in that regard, you are rewarding players for not
absolutely, and
going
the device
outside.
is only the device is only there for pointing you to the absolutely critical story aspects. It's probably not showing 70% of the story, so it's up to the player to find it. Although at the same time, as a designer, it's your job to tune the game to the desired experience you want the players to have. So when you notice that some players are using a mechanic in a way that leads to a different experience, despite it being a choice, you need to adjust it so it still falls within your original vision of the game. And that's something we've been continuously working on for up to the release, to fine-tuning all the mechanics and fine-tuning the pacing of the game as well.
Because you want a certain, because if someone rushes through it, right, they lose something, and
yes,
Entity is the type of a game that you have to kind of chew on it. You have to stay with it. You have to you have to enjoy. You have to savor it.
Yes,
in order to actually understand.
It's a slow-paced experience meant for a relaxed evening in the couch, and of course we can't force the players to play it that way. Some may choose to rush it. You can complete a game in maybe 4 hours if you know what you're doing. You can even complete it in just a few hours if you've already done it before. But obviously that's not the intended experience of the game. And we want to adjust the gameplay as much as possible to convey that intended experience, because the players who don't usually play that kind of games, they don't know what they are missing out unless they get to experience it first through the design choices that we as developers make. So when you kind of understand how the game is supposed to flow, you might discover something new you did not know you didn't show before.
So what would you say is the biggest, let's say, reward for a player who he or she takes her time exploring everything and going outside of this device-aided, let's say, linear path?
Obviously, it's the complete story picture, because there's so much nuance to every character that you discover in the world that is told not only through additional mementos, as we call them, the ones with the voiceovers, but it's also told through the scattered documents, through the visual storytelling. Like here you can see one of the guards actually guarding the entrance and why he's guarding it, you can read about a document you can find elsewhere, what actually happened to the military guys in here. And then there is some humor, some more detail about just the human nature of those who lived here in the world, and then there are some Easter eggs, some additional discoveries, some achievements to be found just for playing the game, in a kind of different way. For example, this actually explains why the guard is sitting there and what happens, the document they found, and why the place the guard's there. So there's lots of nuances to the story, and it's all told in a little bit scrambled way, but then you have your journal in where all the voiceovers and all the entries are ordered in a chronological order, allowing the player to get up to speed and reread it and think through everything that they find.
Yeah, it helps you make sense of everything, even if the pieces that you find are kind of scattered initially.
Exactly.
Yeah, you know what? I really like this way of, because it really feels like it's more about the discovery than, I mean, sure, the story drives everything forward and you want to find out what's going on, and that's exactly it. The more you search, the more you find out, the more you understand. So I think that's it ties really well with what I think you're trying to do, and is this find out what's going on, what happened to all of these people, and the more questions you have, the more you should search, basically.
The more answers there is to find. Yes.
Yeah. So in that regard, I think it's it depends on everyone's style of play, but I do think it does offer a lot if you take your time and you find as many things as possible, because they're very complex relations and some quite surprising between characters that you wouldn't really think about. So I think that's really nice, because it tells you more about, okay, this person did this because of this. So motivation is one of the big things with people.
Yeah. So
just,
for example, like here, you discover a little bit of story about the founders. Yeah, of the city. 5 of them actually. One of them is missing from the story for now, but you actually get to experience what one of the founders, Mr. Patrashku, is doing with the city and what his plans were.
Yeah, so it's yeah, it is rewarding. It is rewarding to go around, to look, to find, to seek out information, and that's something that, sure, a lot of adventure games do, but they're more about finding that one object that you have to put in one specific place and combine with others. And in here with Empathy, it's none of that. There's no inventory. It's just find, discover the elements that make you move forward in terms of the knowledge of the world. So I like that.
Right.
It's more focused, I think, than other adventure games in that sense. It's purely story.
It's different. I mean, our goal with Empathy was a very particular experience, the sense of discovery and the sense of soaking in the atmosphere and the story of the world. And it's a very particular experience that I usually enjoy myself personally in all other games. Sometimes I play a game specifically for its atmosphere and for its, the world, rather than gameplay mechanics and its... Yeah, basically, instead of its gameplay mechanics, I sometimes play games just for the atmosphere and the story, regardless of how bad they sometimes can be. If it has a good atmosphere and the world, I'm sold. I'll just, be walking around, exploring the game over and over and over, just to enjoy and soak in this kind of a feeling. And yeah, we try to always reward the players who go off the beaten path. For example, like here, you're heading down some weird building, and when you actually at the bottom of it, you will find an additional tidbit of the stories that kind of questions, okay, why does military have access to the food and supplies in this weird place where everything is scarce and supplies are really short. So it kind of helps the player to piece together a picture. For example, when you pick up this beer can, you see soldier talking about like, where does this sergeant get also stuff which raises more questions, and the player can actually find answers to all those questions as well.
So, and would you say that it's more about, getting the clues about, about the world and, just getting to a specific place? Because technically, at the very end, you do have to get to a specific place, right? To a location. But
Yes,
is the
absolutely.
journey there as important, you'd say?
I mean, the game starts at a specific task that the player fails, and you are set on a journey to discover what exactly you missed when you attempted that task at the first place. And there's lots of stuff that you missed, and part of it is the stuff that you will be discovering now throughout the world. It's the memories, it's the emotions, and it's also part of restoring this balance. You experiencing and reliving those memories and emotions.
So, and one interesting element, because it's free roaming, it's your choice how you go along, but you have this male voice that kind of directs you a little bit. So, why exactly was that necessary, or was that more of a story element that you wanted to be in? Why have this guiding voice, let's say?
It's both design choice and a story telling choice. In such games, you usually have two alternatives. Either you have some kind of narrator guiding you, or you have the parts of the world guiding you. The difficulty is to balance them and to direct the player in a proper and meaningful way. Like here, you fade into memory, you get to relive the memory, okay, you know what the person is going through. But at the same time, you kind of want to have a helping hand along the way, because we chose to have a silent protagonist, and that is a little bit tricky to figure out how to do properly. We didn't want to make the story about the players that you are controlling. We wanted to make the story about the people, so that's why we made the protagonist silent. But at the same time, we wanted to have some things that feels more dynamic, not only having you listen to things of the past, but also being something in the present that helps along the way and kind of muses over what you see. It's there for experience, basically. It kind of enhances your experience of the world, helps you along. Obviously, it's a design thing to direct the player, but also to enhance the story experience, to give player more clues about the world, to make the world more interesting and more living.
But would you say that this interaction between, let's say, the narrator, for lack of spoilers, right? So we can give it this interaction between you, the player, and the narrator, does that does that play as an element to kind of bring the player into the world? So you are here to tell them we're communicating, so you are here, you matter too, you are part of this world too?
It's a little bit difficult to say again without spoilers, but the communication is there obviously to makes a player feel like a part of the game, and the narrator helps the player to understand what exactly is going on, because the way we wanted to structure the story is as it's a story of the past, and that's why we needed something more present to help anchor the player in the current reality, to help them understand their current task. That's where the narrator comes in. It's a guide on your journey.
Okay, fair enough. So it's I really want to talk about all of these people that you find out things about, right? They all existed here. You have to discover what's going on with them. To me, it really felt like it's the story about them, and not specifically the world as much as each individual that lived here. And you're kind of somewhat of a historian, by seeing all of this, because all of this is from the past. So it's like you're someone who is in this world, has some kind of connection to it, but for the most part, you are just experiencing everything through their eyes.
Well, the empathy doesn't focus necessarily so much on people as individual characters. It focuses on interaction between people. This kind of interaction could be obviously have been presented in many different ways, and we chose to make interesting characters for each of those conflicts and give them a very unique personalities that the player will discover. At the same time, the story is about the underlying conflicts between those characters rather than about the specific characters themselves. So it's not a story about a guy named Andropov. It's a story about a detective who wants to feel relevant again. It's a story about wanting to get back on, your high point in life and being relevant and skillful and needed again, rather than a story about a detective. So it's a story about a certain feeling and emotion rather than a story about a specific character.
Okay, so since it's not a specific character, right? What's the evil in this world? Let's say, what's the good and evil in the world of empathy?
Well,
how are they represented exactly?
We try to avoiding the labels of good and evil for the most part. I mean, there are certain characters that you can with utmost certainty say that are good or bad in the story, but most of them are just shades of gray again. They all have their motivations for doing something, which can paint them in a more understandable and positive light to the player, but then they have their actions, which paint them in a more negative light. So it's up to the player to decide how they view every particular character. There is a couple of characters that are negative, which the player will stumble upon, but there isn't the main antagonist that the story will be focusing on. The story focuses on the tale of the people that are behind this impending apocalypse, rather than the story of a sad evil villain, because it's a little bit way too simplified to make it that way. I personally feel I find it much more interesting to intrigue the players by making a complex story of different motivations, neither of which are evil or good, but just makes the player understand how different decisions lead to a certain negative or positive outcome, rather than someone just being evil for the sake of evil. Where few people are doing evil stuff because they're evil. You don't wake up and think, oh yeah, hey, I'm gonna do some evil stuff today because I'm a jerk. Most of the people do positive or negative things because of certain motivation, and it's those motivations that we want to highlight in empathy.
And let's, since I know you have to go soon, and I really appreciate that.
Well, in 20 minutes or so.
Okay, well, the thing is that, we could probably talk for hours, and I'm not copying Dave Rubin saying that. I could actually talk for hours. I like you, Dave. It's just sometimes you say that too much. Sorry.
Right.
He doesn't know me, but it's fine. So let's talk about the technical aspects of empathy. So you said that you went with UDK initially, and then you transitioned to Unreal Engine 4. Can you tell me a little bit about that decision? Was it because it was, it allowed you to do more in terms of the gameplay, in terms of the storyline, in terms of, how you construct the world? Right.
It was a little bit of both, because UDK is extremely dated at this point. It was a rather good engine when it was first released, when it was still relevant. But we felt limited in many ways when it came to the technical aspects, like the visuals, when it came to certain workflows, like constructing materials or the graphical effects for the game. And it was overall a little bit unstable at that point as well for all the modern systems. So, considering that we wanted to switch from the point-and-click genre to the first-person genre of the game instead, we felt that it was a good opportunity to take the plunge and make the switch, now that we were rewriting lots of code anyways. And it really increased our productivity. I can't imagine what the project would have been, what state the project would have been in if we stick with CDK, and what the game would have looked like. But Unreal has lots of powerful tools, especially for designers like me. I'm not a programmer. I mean, I understand code. I can program. I can code. I did lots of scripting in the game, although we had our dedicated gameplay programmer as well for that. But basic stuff that you see around, like opening, like interacting with the levers, etc., it had to be scripted in engine, which is what our gameplay programmer did great job on, especially thanks to Unreal. For example, the doors that you see and the levers, all the movable stuff, are based off the same core object. It's basically a template that has different inputs in it. Like this door, it says how much it will rotate, how fast it will rotate, which direction it will rotate, which angle, what kind of mesh, what kind of graphical asset it uses, what kind of sound it will play, all the kind of variables. And he just set up a core template for all that kind of stuff that made it extremely easy for me to level design the world. I just, it's like playing with Legos. You got so many basic pieces, and you can construct them whatever you want. And that kind of flexibility was not possible in UDK before. Especially when it comes to the graphics, it's so much more powerful and so much more modular when it comes to materials. About 70% of the materials you see in the game are based on the same core material template, where we just change the parameters of what texture it uses, what normal map, how specular it is, how rough it is, whether it's a metal or not. So there's lots of configurations going on, but we don't have to create each unique material from scratch for every asset, as you sometimes have to do in older engines or in some other engines.
Okay, two things. First of all, and this is, I think the game looks really good. What I would ask for, can I get, not only me specifically, but the whole, everyone who's playing Empathy, can we get a high resolution texture back?
That will be difficult at this point. Yeah, it's extremely difficult to update all the textures to high resolution, but we can up the resolution on some textures, because right now we compressed many textures for the sake of the performance, but at the same time many of the textures are part of the art style of the game, like this stone cement hatch that you see below you. This kind of a little bit more splash artistic way, it's just the art style of the game. We don't want high fidelity graphics on there because it doesn't feel with it doesn't fit the game's art style. Of course, higher and more detailed materials, especially more interesting materials, is something we would very much like to incorporate in the game. And that would only be possible once we update to newer versions of the engine, because right now we are on a version that is about over a year old, and it's obviously starting to show its own compatibility issues with some aspects of game developments.
Did you stay on that older version because newer versions did not offer something else, or maybe broke something that worked on?
Yes, lots of stuff changed between versions since Unreal is still in heavy development, and we did not have time to thoroughly test all the new versions and upgrade, because we would need to remake the foliage, for example. We would need to update lots of our scripting for the new version, because some references change, some methods change, and it's a time-consuming progress of updating the engine version in Unreal when it became such a huge cap. We are on 4.9, the latest is 4.16, which is over a year newer at this point. So you can imagine the massive changes that been.
Yeah, it's pretty much like what you hear with people who use the Unity engine is like, I'm not going to update because it's going to break X and Y and Z. So yeah, people are it's a tough time to update when you know that it may screw around with something that you worked really hard on.
Yeah, well, there's lots of stuff that change. For example, like how materials behave. Metal materials behave slightly different in the latest version, so we would need to update a lot of stuff there. And yeah, there isn't that many stuff that break, but it's just they behave differently, and they need just updated logic for scripting, basically. So it's time consuming.
Did you have to? Yeah, definitely is, and sometimes time is always time is of the essence. Did you have to do? Did you need to program something or make something custom for for Empathy? Was there a need for
Yes,
something?
absolutely. I mean, we have a dedicated programmer who does all the C++ logic of the game, and what he made for us is basically this kind of modular. What do they call them? Just a second. What he created for them are modular components that we can attach onto basically anything. So, for example, when you see like the trigger of the voice there, it's a modular component that he made, which is saying that okay, when you overlap anything that this component is attached to, do this, and then we script the logic of what's gonna happen. But he programmed a lot of base logic of the memories, how the saving system works, lots of those custom components that make the scripting easier, which are basically, again, like Legos. Once he made those tools for us, we can just combine them in lots and lots of different ways.
Yeah, so those were to improve the workflow in terms of designing the levels and
Yes,
everything.
absolutely. I mean, it made it so much easier for us. We didn't have to do as much custom work on every single piece. It allowed for much more modularity when it came to game development and level design.
Let's go for talk about a little bit about the audio part, because it's I think it's highly relevant and it helps immerse you into the game and into the story. Did you work with someone specific, like with a composer?
Yes, we have two people taking care of the audio part. First, we have our composer, Nikolai Patricio, who's taking care of all the music in the game, all the tracks that you hear come in sometimes at his work. And then we have our audio engineer, who takes care of all the sound effects, all the ambience in the game, atmosphere, actually incorporating it into the game. He uses Fmod. Fmod is a very powerful audio engine that allows you to tweak lots of stuff, remix audio in different ways, and combine it in a certain unique behavior. It offers a lot of scripting as well there, but we still needed to support it in game, obviously. And he done a great job of incorporating it into the game, where now you have the atmosphere where some musical tones come and go depending on where you are. Nikolai Patricio done the music which he extracted. Mikhail, our sound engineer, extracted some tones from Nikolai's music tracks and incorporated in the atmosphere. So the atmosphere feels much more musical. It's not only nature sounds; it's some musical tones, some details, some short tunes that come and go to make it more interesting. And Mikhail done a great job in overall sound design of the game, where there's lots of details to like a computer beeping, the steam on the pipes, hissing, etc., etc. When it comes to the musical part that Nikolai was responsible for, we tried quite a few different approaches there. Obviously, we knew that we wanted to have good music in the game to enhance every area and certain experience that we want to convey in that area, but we weren't quite sure how we want to do that, whether we want to have looping music, which we considered at some point, but in the end we went with very tailored, customized tracks for each area. So what Nikolai did was, basically play through the game, try to understand and feel the atmosphere of every place, understand the story that that place is about, and see how he can convey it with his music, which he done an awesome job on. The music track is very, very detailed and available for free with the game too. And then we check, okay, here we can add this music track, then this music track goes elsewhere, and just see how to combine it for the best experience. All the musical tracks are highly tailored for the places they're in, and then we just make sure to, trigger them at the right moment of the game as well.
So what what would you say is like maybe let's say like the general audio theme of Empathy? Is it is it apocalypse incoming or what?
For the music, we wanted to give a slightly more hopeful experience, I would say. The music, I personally always pushed for a more derelict, kind of more, how to put it, moody music that conveys the ambience and the story of a particular place. Lots of melancholic tunes in the game. Nikolai had his own vision of how every place should feel with the music. For example, when you come close to this machine, a special track plays that repeats during other certain parts of the game to kind of like ties them together, which was, you know, his idea of tying together certain parts of the game musically, which worked out really nice in the end. But we try not to be all this gloom and doom with the music. We try to go for a slightly more, a little bit sad and melancholic tunes, but lots of the team is also hopeful, especially towards the end, to give the player more motivation. You know, you are near the end, you are about to figure out all those stuff, and music reflects the journey of the player as well, starting a little bit more depressing with the first track of the city, then starting a little bit more mysterious with Atlas Park, a little bit more derelict in the train station, very ambient, very natural and rich in the mountains, and especially and very, very hopeful towards the end, the tracks that you'll find there. So it follows the player's journey, so to say.
I like that. It evolves with, you know, with the
Yeah,
story,
absolutely.
you know, your
We had lots of discussion about the music in the game, where I pushed for one direction and our composer pushed for another. In the end, I gave way on most of the stuff because, well, he's a composer, he knows what he's doing, so I trust him there. Obviously, there were some design choices that I wanted the music to reflect, which he managed to capture really, really well with his tracks, and especially the mood that every scene had to kind of give the player. So the music is there to enhance it and to improve on it.
Yeah, it's not about changing, it's about, you know, pretty much building upon what's already there. Like the world,
Yeah.
you know, you don't want to change the vision of the world with the music, you want to emphasize it. You know, this
Yeah,
is a really
exactly. It's to
empty
enhance the
part.
experience. It doesn't create the experience from scratch. Obviously, music is a very powerful tool which can create lots of amazing experience, but when you listen to it as standalone. But in games, music is there to enhance an experience, and without music, obviously, a game would fall very flat. It's a completely different experience when you play a silent game, which might be intentional in certain kinds of games. I know a few titles where the atmosphere is very still. I think it was called Cairo or something, where you're basically stuck in time watching a meteorite crash into civilization, frozen in time. And there it's very fitting that the ambience is very, very silent. You feel like you're stuck, in a moment frozen of time, basically.
Yeah, you know, so like without knowing the game, it sounds like that would, you know, maybe also emphasize the fact that you are helpless. You're just watching there something be destroyed, right? Like there's nothing you can do about it. Yeah, that's actually interesting. But you know, of course, the music here is, you know, more about you know, the journey, and okay, you've reached a place and now you're going forward, and you know, you're closer and closer to your goal, which is pretty much saving the world. Would you say, or is that too much to say?
Well, yeah, let's not spoil the story too much, but
No,
to be
not,
honest,
but would you say that overall, like the specific goal is to bring a change for the better in the world? Let's say, like, you know,
it's to bring a change. Story is summarized in a little bit different way. We left a lot of it up to the player to interpret, but at the same time we do give closure on how this journey ends and what it ends in. But we'll leave it up to the player to discover how exactly the goal is. I mean, you're
I think that's
obviously
yeah.
on the journey to undo something. You are on the journey to improve and to fix this world, yes. And the music reflects that, but it also reflects the current state of the world and this kind of like surrealistic, weird stuff that you stumble upon.
Mm. So one thing that kind of well, while I was thinking about our discussion, another request, because apparently I have requests. Since playing the game, right after you play it, you finish it, you can start it again, of course.
Uh-huh.
Would you consider maybe adding something like a game plus, where you could maybe go back to the places that you visited, maybe to pick up the memories and the snippets that you missed? Or
Yeah,
would you
we're
just
actually
advise people to
working on
do?
this. Because
Mm.
well, our solution is a little bit different. It's not so much Game Plus is allowing you to
Mm-hmm.
get back to where you were and revisit certain places, because we noticed that our solution with auto saving is not robust enough to satisfy all the players' curiosity. So there are some places that players get into where they're not supposed to, and they might get stuck. So we are implementing a
Yeah.
new
Right.
feature with save slots, which allows the player to see the end and then just load up your last save, finish up all your exploration, and then get back to the end as well. Again, if you wish to, but it would allow the player to revisit all the places you might have missed and recollect all the lost stuff. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. That sounds good, because it felt like, oh, I have to start from the beginning. Like it's okay. Then it's a little weird when you have to
Well,
start from something from scratch. But yeah, and yeah,
it
it sounds like a
it depends
good
really,
idea.
because I think a lot of it reflects player's journey in ways that if you are a completionist, you
Mm-hmm.
usually pick up all the stuff on your ways there.
Yeah.
If you don't,
Yeah.
it's not something you always go back to. And I obviously understand the people's desire to do so, which is why we're doing this change. But the original reasoning was that we want to give the player closure to the stories they experience. And if you miss some bits of the story, that is kind of different stories that you basically end up with. Some of the parts being untold.
Mm-hmm. So would you say that in terms of replayability, how do you see empathy? Would someone
Empathy is
who can, yeah, tell me.
Empathy was originally intended as a one-time playthrough, because I mean such games almost always are one kind of playthrough for the original story, since they are very story-driven. You know the story, okay,
Mm-hmm.
well that's it, pretty much. But at the same time, I often find myself replaying some of the other story-focused games, such as Firewatch, Adventures, and Carter, just to re-experience their atmosphere in the world, not so much as the gameplay, but just because I again loved the world they have. And as I said before, I'm just a sucker for a really well-made world and detailed atmosphere, so I just keep coming back to it. Of course, players can replay it and find out more of what they missed, especially now that they know the story. Some of the acts will come in a little bit different light as they were previously, so it's always an interesting experience. But it's not the primary purpose of the game. It's one-time playthrough that is the primary interest of the game.
And you mentioned before, like, how what would you estimate be for a full playthrough of Empathy?
It's about 6 hours, I would say. Again, in line with
Mm-hmm.
other similar titles. I
Mm-hmm.
saw some people playing, for like 10 hours. Some
Yeah,
streamers rushed through it in maybe 3-4 hours, often knowing what
that's
they have
fast.
to do from previous experience. But yeah, that's how the game usually is. It's a short and very focused experience, so to say. So
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
would be done with it in about 6 hours, yeah, I would say.
Mm. You say it's short, but it's quite compact when you and compact, and let's say thick in terms of content, because you find a lot of small
Yes,
snippets, and
absolutely.
when
I
you put
mean,
them all together, I mean, checking the journal, like, this is just the first act, and you can already see a lot of characters here, a lot of text. So
yeah.
if you want to go back to it, it's like there's quite a lot here. to discover and to internalize maybe.
Absolutely, and I mean, we want players to do that. We want players to take the time and to explore the world and try to understand the story, because that's the kind of players the game is aimed for. It's not meant for players who just want to rush through it in 2 hours, because that's not the full experience of the story. The Empathy is a story-focused game, and if you're not there for the story, which is its strongest and main selling point, which we even won awards for, then you kind of miss out on the game's primary experience. Yeah, it's like playing Battlefield for its story. I mean, it has a single mode, but
yeah,
people go play Battlefield for an awesome multiplayer experience of a first-person shooter. You don't go play Battlefield just for the story, because you will end up not as satisfied as with story-focused shooters that exist out of its market.
So there's people in the chat, of course, talking a little bit. Hi, Carmen. Hi. I like that if he said game looks cute. How would you Anton? How would you say? What would you say to someone who thinks Empathy looks cute?
Well, I mean, there are certain areas that look fairy tale-like and almost cute in a certain way, especially the park with its misty blue fog and red trees. But I would say it's a little bit grim and a little bit serious rather than cute. But cute is obviously word to describe some of the aspects. And art style overall of the game is definitely this kind of fairy tale, cute rather than always grim and dark. So there is a certain point to that description as well.
Yeah, it's like it has something of everything. It's like it's gritty, it's apocalyptic, dark, and it's also cute and relaxing, and and it's vibrant sometimes, I would say, although there are not a lot of no people around. It is vibrant in certain areas, at least. I kind of wish there were more birds singing, but that just, I don't know, I just like hearing birds singing, I guess. So okay, we're gonna close up a little bit right now. If everyone who's interested in Empathy, they can find it right now. Actually, because it launched just a few days ago, you still have the launch discount, right? It's until
that's correct.
May 23rd. Right, and that's,
it's a whole week basically.
Significant. So it's 20% off the base game, so that would be like what, $16 or euro. So I think that's a fair price tag for the experience. I think that especially if you like adventure games and if you like stories in particular, and you're not about, oh, I want to do this and this and these mechanics, then Empathy definitely has something to offer.
Well,
now, let's go a little bit off track. Yeah, sorry, continue.
No, I was just about to say, the Empathy is primarily a story-driven game, and that's what the players getting into the game should expect. You're not there for the action. There is some kind of, there is parts of it are action, there is puzzles, but still it's a story. So if you're in for the story, Empathy is your kind of game. If you're in for the action, not the most optimal title.
Well, if you're into action, then are you working on a new title? Just so
we're currently focused on Empathy and making some of the improvements I would like, but I think our next title that I would personally would like to focus on is obviously a little bit more mechanic focused and less content focused. But we still want to explore different ways of storytelling in our titles, which is what Empathy is partly about as well. And I have a very particular experience that I would like to convey with my game, which is this kind of tranquil feeling of, like a warm autumn day when you just walk out and just soak in the atmosphere. It's a very particular feeling, which can get sometimes in games like Stalker. The thing with me is I play lots of games for their, again, atmosphere, and I can play both Stalker, which is an amazing game, and it kind of triggers this lonely, derelict, melancholic feeling as you explore its weird and abandoned places with lots of dangers in them. There's also The Witcher, Witcher 3, which also kind of triggers that feeling with its absolutely gorgeous environments, especially when you get to the no man's land with its lush forests and mystical creatures. I just loved the atmosphere in that game. But
Yeah,
I
so
still,
Sightslinger says, one second, sorry, I'm sorry. Sightslinger said in the chat, a poker cute. Like
yeah,
apocalypse and cute. It works.
that's definitely
I
a good
guess it
description.
works. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Yes.
Sorry for interrupting.
But yeah, there is this particular feeling of derelict and summer warmth that I want to convey with the titles that I'm working on. And I don't think I will be able to nail it 100% in either of our titles. They are all different kind of takes on that feeling. Empathy is one take, a slow-paced exploration take where you take your own time to explore and to soak in the atmosphere. The next title will be slightly different to it. It might touch in more on the world of Empathy, on the story, although it wouldn't be exactly the same genre. But it also might be completely different setting, but it's the same kind of feelings that I want to convey with it. And yeah, we'll see what we will conjure up.
So on the next project, not in the same world as Empathy. Can we assume that?
No, it might touch on the same backstory as Empathy that I personally would be interested on expanding on. It's not. It wouldn't be set in Chernosk, but it would definitely touch on the core story of Empathy that the player discovers later on in the game.
Okay, that sounds enticing, especially for people who played Empathy and it's would like to know more. Like right now, one of the reasons why I wanted a higher texture pack, because I wanted all the newspapers in the newsstands. I wanted all of them to have text that I can read, so I can find out more about the world. So that's like it's really a setting that it feels like you're just it's a small rabbit hole, and if you go through it, you just find a billion and a billion things about
definitely.
it. And
Actually, our gameplay programmer was working on a similar thing where we would add lots of detail to the world with such as mouse over on the newspapers, etc. Unfortunately, there were time restraints and budget restraints, so it didn't quite make it into this release. But as I mentioned before, we are working on upgrading our engine, and we will be releasing an Mac and the Linux version probably in the fall.
Do you have a timeline for that? Sorry.
Somewhere.
Okay, so
yeah, somewhere in the fall. We'll see. I can't really say for sure because Linux being Linux, it might be easy, it might be really freaking hard. So we'll see about that. But yeah, we would we would very much like to release a small update and content to the Empathy. We'll see how it goes. No concrete parts as of yet, so we'll see. Right now, our main focus is on polishing up the current title and get more and more feedback from the players on what they like, what they dislike, and see how we can improve on it.
Any plans for maybe a console releases?
We are looking potentially into Xbox, but it's same thing as with Linux. I mean, it might be easy, it might be hard. We will start looking into it on the summer, and then we'll take it from there, depending on how it goes.
So, while you're working on Empathy, the FPS, I'm kidding, of course. No, maybe, I don't know, maybe it's like more mechanical. It's gonna be a third-person shooter where you kill everyone in Chernosk. What games do you enjoy? What things do you play? You mentioned
it's
The Witcher. You mentioned
funny thing that you mentioned the shooting up everyone in Chernobyl, because one of the potential expansion of the world's lore was actually something I considered is first-person shooter game set in Chernosk. But yeah, again, I'm getting sidetracked. Other games I enjoyed, well, I have a very particular taste in games. It's really hard for me to keep my attention on certain games unless there's something that really stands out from the rest in their own particular way. Obviously, The Witcher, as I said, I freaking love that game. Then we have Metal Gear Rising. Revengeance. I really liked that game because of its action mechanics of slicing and everything. Trine, it has a very captivating world. Then let's see, Stalker series, also amazing because of the world, because of the atmosphere, because of the mechanics of the survival. Some other games that I enjoyed recently. Super Hot, really cool shooter game. Wolfenstein,
Oh, yeah.
the original first game. I have not played the DLC. It didn't really resonate with me as much. I don't generally like DLCs once the main story is told. It feels weird. But
Well,
Rayman.
if it tells, maybe a different story,
Yeah, but Rayman is also an awesome game. I love platforming in Rayman. It's just like sheer joy. It took me a bit of time to understand that Rayman is not about as much as battling the enemies as it's a puzzle platformer, trying to get the timing and the jumping right rather than trying to fight the enemies as I was attempting at first in Rayman games. But yeah, it's also a really cool experience. And then we have lots of indie titles on my watch list right now that just waiting for me to wrap up work on Empathy that I would like to play through, such as Rain World, The Wild, Eternal, Dead Cells. They just entered early access.
Dead Cells. Okay, Dead Cells. This is the first one you should go. I mean,
Yeah.
Rain World. It's not exactly my type of game. I played it. I made a few videos. I mean, if you have time to invest in it, that's fine. And the world is really interesting. But it's like, not my cup of tea, right? Rain World. But
Right.
Dead Cells. It's seriously. It's one of the most polished games that ever came out in early access.
Oh yeah.
By far. It's
Oh.
it's one of the games that pretty much takes every single criticism for roguelikes, action games, like platformers, and it's like, okay, we're gonna make it good this time. And seriously, it's a really good game. I really, I don't have enough words to say how perfect in execution it is, and it's only in early access. And I don't mince words usually. It's amazing, and the team at Motion
Speaking
Twin,
of
it's-
really polished Metroidvanias, another game is Dust and Illusion Tale. That game
played
is. You should check it out if you like Dead Cells. Dust and Illusion Tale. It's similar to what was it? Ori and the Blind Forest, I think. I actually think that Ori and the Blind
Ori
Forest
was a
is.
good game.
Yeah, it's really inspired by Dust and Illusion Tale because I noticed lots of similar mechanics in Ori and the Blind Forest. But Dust and Illusion Tale, it's made by one guy, and it's seriously the most satisfying combat I've ever experienced in 2D platformers. It's so incredibly responsive, smooth, and it just feels very satisfying. Just flying around, smacking stuff, killing enemies. You should definitely check it out because it's a really cool experience when it comes to Metroidvanias and platformers.
Yeah, just while I wait for the next Dead Cell update, and then I'll try to check that out. So anything that is right now in the works that you are looking forward to?
Right now in the works, it's really hard to say because I haven't been keeping an eye on on all the news being just wrapped up in Empathy. That's also one
Destiny
of. Maybe I'll definitely check it out, but I usually don't really stick to AAA games unless it's stuff like The Witcher that really interests me. I haven't been playing that many AAA games at all. Actually, I think Witcher is the only AAA game that I've played recently, and I actually enjoyed it. I usually stick to medium to smaller titles because they kind of like different, and this kind of difference is what keeps my attention. If I start a game and I recognize its elements, I kind of lose interest because human brain, it requires new patterns to explore. Those patterns not necessarily be absolutely perfect, but they need to be different to keep my attention in the game. Like I need to understand how the game works. It's like in MMOs. Many MMOs take after World of Warcraft. World of Warcraft.
It's so successful, that's it.
Yeah, and when you enter an MMO and you say, okay, so there is an exclamation mark where that guy's head, which means he'll give me a quest to likely kill those pigs over there in the herd, to collect their liver or something. I'll turn the team, I get an item, I'll proceed the villages. This, you already know how the game gonna function up front, and I don't like it. When you enter a game, you shouldn't understand the world, you should not understand the game. But as you play through it, you should be able to obviously learn it and get good at it. But if you just know how the game will progress and how the game works from the beginning, it kind of loses part of its appeal to me, because I already figured the game out, you know, before it barely started. And that's
looking maybe at yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
And that's part of the reasons AAA have hard time keeping my interest. Like Dishonored, when I entered it, I mean, it has very interesting gameplay mechanics, but I already understood what the game will be will be filled with, like the sneaking, killing, and on its own it didn't interest me.
Blinking everywhere.
Yeah, it didn't interest me too much to actually continue. Witcher had cool combat going for it, which really captivated my interest, because there was so much to explore, like different dodge tactics or different combinations of moves, etc. But in, for example, let's see, what did I try recently that I didn't quite stick with?
No, I like that say Witcher 3, which is a AAA title, but they did change quite a lot since the second one, like in terms of mechanics, especially like you said, the combat. It's quite different from the second one, from Witcher 2.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I actually skipped part of Witcher 2. I did not finish Witcher 2. I finished Witcher 1 and loved the game. Witcher 2, it didn't strike that chord with me that usually keeps my interest. It has interesting parts of it, but the story started out kind of, okay, assassination, well, whatever. And its combat lacked the unique aspect of the first game and wasn't fluid enough as in the third game to keep me playing, I guess. The first Witcher is a really cool game. I mean, it's dated at this point, but it still has its charm. I mean, it's worth replaying just for the sake of it.
Did you remember that game you were thinking about?
I don't even remember which one I was thinking about now. I did not remember. Sorry.
It's okay. It's late. It's late. Well, it's not that late. Never mind. It's late. Let's say it's late. It's late, and well, if you have any closing thoughts, please, just go ahead.
Sorry.
Some closing thoughts if you want to tell the people watching anything. Just chill. I mean, come on, just chill. Just buy empathy. Come on.
Yeah, there is
honesty.
Of course.
Honesty is the best policy.
If you enjoy atmospheric and story-driven games, empathy is for you. And yeah, check it out. What more is there to show? You always kind of feel dirty sharing your own game, but yeah, absolutely, it's worth checking out.
Okay, then I'll do it for you. Okay, so it's fine. I don't have, because I'm not getting any money, so it's fine. I mean, it's like Pixel Night. I just met Anton right now. We were like, before the stream started, we were bashing each other's principles and stuff. You're like, oh no, this is bad. So no problem there. Oh, I can't hear something. I think Anton is not here. Anton? Oh, there she go. Not to guess. Okay. So Anton, I can't hear you. That's the problem. Okay. So while he gets back, hopefully he'll be back. I want to say that empathy is. I mean, I've played it. I've played it quite a bit. I have right now I have more than 10 hours worth of gameplay in it. Yeah, Anton just dropped the phone. It's okay. It happens. It happens. It's fine. Carmen, it happens. So I have more than 10 hours in the game, and I just wish there was more that I could find in terms of the whole world. I mean, of course, I didn't find 100% of all the elements in it, but even if I found all of it. Oh wait, sorry. Has been assassinated? No, he hasn't been assassinated. Welcome back. Okay, so Carmen said that Anton has been assassinated by a Russian spy. Well, no. Carmen, Anton is the Russian spy.
Oh yeah.
Anton, can you lower? Oh, sorry. Can you lower the volume a bit? Your volume a little bit, please. You're really loud right now.
A bit difficult, but I can speak quieter, I guess, because I'm calling from my phone since my internet just decided to, drop out.
Ah.
And
Oh, really? Oh, crap. Okay,
just
never mind. It's fine. Aw. Okay, you're fine. So sorry, I was saying to everyone that I have more than 10 hours worth in empathy, and that's no surprise because the world is it's it's something that captivates and also and always keeps you wondering and searching for more. And I think that's something that very few games actually offer, that excitement to find out something new about the setting, the people in there. And you could take like for example here in the train station, all the things that happen here is like, oh, these people were trying doing a revolution, then there were some people manipulating others. So all of that is something that not a lot of games offer. And yeah.
It is the primary selling point of Empathy 2. We want to reward the players who goes a little bit extra and want to enjoy the world. So there is lots to discover, and if you like exploration, I mean, I love exploration myself, and just want to reward the players who kind of take a little bit past differently to the main one. There is lots of stuff to find.
Yeah, exactly. So it definitely offers more in terms of the construction of the world, and in terms of the particularities of, that's a word, right, of a surreal world. It's like if you want to get inside, you're not going to get more than well, probably Empathy 2 will offer more, because Empathy 2 will have, I'm gonna say yeah.
We'll
Sorry.
see how we go. That we gonna get maybe zombies DLC. That always sells, right? People love shooting zombies.
Yeah, apparently. Yeah, that's true. So just make sure you release the game, around this time. Don't wait for November. It's just the DLC. Just something in the summer. Before the Mac release, because then it's gonna be like, oh, Destiny, and it's gonna be like Call of Duty, and all of them have zombies probably. I mean,
yeah, that is good.
Star Wars Battlefront 2 will probably have zombies, probably. I mean, eventually in the season pass, like the third one, the third DLC, probably. Exactly, yeah, because that makes so much sense. So you know what? I think it's a really cool game. If you like stories, like Anton said, if you like, to discover new things, and you know what? If you like human nature in general, because that's something that Empathy, I think, captures. It's human nature and the variables that come with it. It's not right and wrong. It's mostly just situations that people find themselves into.
It's the motivation of the people doing stuff. Why people behave they do, and like what underlying motivations they have to their actions. Because it's kind of boring to just get those actions of the people. You want to explore the motivations, what has driven them to behave in such a way, and that's what Empathy offers. Kind of like glance at the people's life and what driven them to their current stance. And the storytelling of Empathy is structured in the way that you're first given question, and then you can start picking up answers along the way that kind of led to this thing to happen. So it's posing lots of questions and offers people ways to find the answers.
Yeah, it offers some answers. So if anyone's gonna play Empathy, then know that the DLC with more answers will be coming, just like BioWare did with Mass Effect 3. It is coming in the next few weeks to explain more things from the world.
We actually got the feedback about, we are considering to expand a little bit on the in-game lore, but just to be clear, no particular DLC will be coming.
Yeah.
With lots of content, but we're definitely exploring new options when it comes to the more story, to give players even more stuff to understand about the world, more answers about the world.
Yeah, for people who are captivated, just pick this one up. It is available, and as I mentioned, it
more on the table. So.
Yeah, and until the 23rd, you can get it for 20% off. I think $16 or euro, whatever your currency is, probably £14, something like that, British pounds. I think it's a decent price, and that's And you know what? If you like this type of games, it's gonna take you more than 6 hours to play through it, because you will be captivated by it, and you will find, you know what, you'll do like I did after I finished it. I checked, well, before I finished actually, I checked through the journal, and then I saw, oh crap, I didn't find a lot of things, and then I felt bad, and I wanted to go back to the game to find all the things that I didn't find. So if you like that, then you know what, $16 a year, I think it's a really decent price tag. You know, even 20, of course, with the full price, because you'll definitely get more than 6 hours. You know, finding everything is going to take you more than 6.
It's a standard pricing length for this kind of experience. I think it's kind of so much different from, say, Dead Cells, because it took different kind of experiences. Games like Dead Cells, it's a continuous entertainment that is driven from the player. Games like Firewatch, Empathy, Vanishing Pieces of Carter, it's more like movies in the ways that you are offered a very particular experience that the creators had in mind, and the stories they want to tell you. So it's not like you entertain yourself. It's a more structured experience that is shorter, that is more focused, that is more tailored to tell a specific story.
Yeah, and that's, you know, it's like a book, right? It's like a book. You don't have, you know, it's like reading a book. The book is what, you know, what the author wrote. You can't modify that. What you could do is interpret it in your way, and the things you understand, because you have 10 people reading a book, you get,
I mean,
you know.
You can always cut out some pages and ignore parts of the story, but hey, I mean, for me, like games like Journey is probably the highlights of this genre, which offer you a very specific experience. Journey is really short. I mean, you can play through it maybe half an hour, 40 minutes, but it's such an amazing experience. You feel like you watched a really feel-good Pixar movie after you've played it. Obviously, that won't be the case with Empathy, because our story is a little bit darker, a little bit grimmer, but it's just this kind of like very tailored experience that you sometimes want in the games, where you can just follow what the creators intended to convey and to tell you.
So basically we have confirmation that the rights for an Empathy movie will not be sold to Disney, because they're not going to make a movie because it's too dark. It's like, we can't work with this. I'm sorry, we can't work. Like, it's like, no, people going crazy stuff. I'm sorry, we can't work with this. Well, you know, on the next game, if you make it with more smileys and like cute kittens or stuff, then maybe it's just, you know, you have to sell out a little bit. What can I say? Well, you know, cute dogs, cute puppies, cute cats, whatever, just cute stuff. So everyone, I think that was it for this interview. Thanks so much, Anton, for coming. If people want to follow you, where can they follow you and the team?
Yeah, absolutely. I have obviously we have our official Twitter at Empathy Game, but we also have my own personal Twitter at Arcly. I can just type it in the chat in a minute that people can follow me just to see my own personal musings. And we of course have our own Steam page where you can follow all the updates, you know, on the game and what we're up to, and what we're doing.
Yeah, so for everyone watching, the Empathy's Steam page is linked in the description below. As always, I put those in the description so people can find the game, and you can wish. Well, you can't wishlist it anymore. Actually, can you wishlist it because it's already available? No, just buy it.
Yeah,
just buy it. It's just like that.
If you want to wait and miss out
on
this amazing experience, hey, why? Yeah, right.
I guess you could wishlist it and wait for a sale. I guess. But why wait? I mean, it's already 20% off. So yeah, exactly. I mean that's a. Exactly, it's a significant discount. So I think that's pretty good because usually games do 10%, maybe 15%. Empathy,
right? Well, thanks so much for having me, and it's been great fun chatting about you.
Thanks for coming, and if we can get you to confirm that when the next project is in a good enough shape that you want to show it, then you're gonna come along. Maybe more people from your team.
Sorry, how do you mean?
I'm not. So, I said like when the next game is in a state that you would want to showcase it. Maybe we can do this again. Maybe with more people from your team.
I'll get in touch with you if we have something new on the radar for when we have it, and yeah, something new for people to look out on. But as said,
did
right
you
now,
say if? Of course you're gonna have. Right,
we'll
right,
see.
okay.
We'll see.
It's definite. Come on, it's like it's gonna be announced by. It's okay. It's fine. Like
Hey,
empathy
I can't
zombie
touch secrets
versions.
right now. Come on.
No, of course, I agree. So thanks for coming, Anton. Thanks for being here and answering the questions. Thanks everyone for being here, for commenting. And well, you know the drill. If you like what I do, just subscribe, like this interview if you liked it. If you didn't, what's wrong with you people? Seriously. And as always, tell your friends, because I'm here every day, Monday to Friday, live streams, gameplay videos. Actually, I uploaded a gameplay video earlier today, so check that out. Thank you again, everyone, for watching. I'm Christian with Cryptic Hybrid. Until the next time we see each other, which is probably going to be tomorrow, because I want to do some freaking Lawbreakers live stream. Thank you, and have an awesome day.
Right, thank you for having me. Have a nice day. Bye.
Bye.